Welcome. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman. I am FP Wellman, your host. Man, you're in the right place. If you're in the wrong place, that's fine. It's not my fault. Don't blame me. You came here, so stay. It's been another fascinating week since we last hung out together with the Hunter Biden federal deal announcement, Trump's insane interview with Bret Baier, and so much more. I've got the perfect guest to discuss it all because timing is everything. I booked him a couple weeks ago, and the world went crazy. Having said that, it's been an interesting week, as always, right? And many are saying this indictment for Trump actually strengthens the support in the Republican Party in the general election. And, we talked a little bit last week about some polls about that and how that's showing. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far today. But there's two polls that came out showing a significant majority of Americans think that due to his federal indictments, he should end his campaign for president. 56% of Americans think he should drop out. But interestingly, 83% of Republicans want him to stay in the race. But more problematic for Trump, I think, and the Republican Party in general, if you ask me, is 58% of independents in two polls, which is, of course, a key swing group, said Trump should drop out. So this is a guy who barely won in 2016, and he lost by single digits in 2020. He may own the Republican Party stalwarts, but the people who fled 3 years ago and made him lose, I don't know if they're going to be coming back when you got 56% of people who think he should not be in the race. But that's a lot to talk about. It makes for an interesting Republican primary, and we'll talk about that in a second. So you know what? Let's not waste any time. Let's get on with the show. And we're back. So welcome. As I mentioned, I am still your host, Fred Wellman. Didn't change while you're gone. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman. You're in the right place. I am so excited to have our guest. He and I hung out in St. Louis last year during his book tour. You can find his book right here at the front of the screen. Tim Miller is an MSNBC analyst, writer at large of the Bulwark, podcaster, best-selling author of Why We Did It, a travelogue with from the Republican Road to Hell. He was the communications director for Jeb Bush's 2016 presidential campaign and spokesman for the Republican National Committee during Mitt Romney's 2012 presidential campaign. So he knows some stuff about our friends, the Republican Party. He's also a fellow native son of Missouri. So it's great to have you here, Tim. Thanks for joining me, man.
I am, even though I'm in my Nuggets hat.
Yeah, look at that.
My parents moved me in elementary school, and we didn't have a basketball team in St. Louis growing up.
That's
so
true.
It was an easy trade. I'm proud of my Denver Nuggets, our first championship. And yeah, man, I'm going to be back in St. Louis. Very brief. I don't know if I'll catch you. Very brief. I got to see my Mimi. Who's still kicking. She's coming up on. She's almost getting to 100. She's in her late 90s now. Maybe we can grab one drink.
I would like that.
We'll see how my time
I'm
goes.
right near downtown, man. So I'm easy to catch up with. I host everybody for beers here. I love that very much. So it was great seeing you here for your book tour. It was great. The book's fantastic. If you haven't read his book, I can't recommend it enough. It is such a fascinating insight into the Republican journey. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but I was going to talk up front, kind of segueing off of that poll up front. I was joking. I wrote in the thing. I was like, I wish it was a busier news week. There's just not much going on, right? I mean, the insane interview is still unfolding with Bret Baier. I saw you and Tom Nichols, also a former guest of the show, did a live discussion of it. I mean, let's just start there. Like, what the hell, man? I mean, it was really interesting. I mean, you guys pointed out really well, I thought, that he was kind of off his game, wasn't he? I mean, it wasn't our typical Trump, I thought.
Yeah, well, in a lot of ways, it was our typical Trump.
Right. I mean, it's always Trump.
It was the word salad. It was the monomania, the narcissism, the lies. But there were definitely a few moments where I think that he revealed a little break in that faux confidence.
Yeah.
The thing that Trump has always had, right, is just this irrational confidence, man. And right. It rarely broke. And I think it broke very briefly right before the 2016 election when he didn't think that he was going to win after the Access Hollywood tape.
Yeah.
And I think the consummate narcissist, I'm just putting him on the couch here. Unfortunately, I've had to be in this asshole's brain for like 8 years now. So I feel like I know him better than I know my husband. But
yep.
I think that after he won that election, despite the fact that everyone told him he was going to lose, it created just this kind of super ego narcissist, right? This man that was already extremely narcissistic now cannot be told that he's defeatable, right. And he believes that he just has this armor. And I think that this week, he expected that he was going to get away with it again. There's the old F around and find out.
Yep.
He's never had to find out really in his life. And I think that he expected that he was going to get away with it again. I think his lawyers, I think he has like the D- list of lawyers now, told him that he's going to get away with this. And all of a sudden, this indictment comes down that from Jack Smith that is really damning and really detailed and very serious. And there were a couple of times in that interview with Brett Baer where it just kind of revealed that he's a little bit nervous about this. And I think that he thinks real consequences could be coming. And when Brett asked him if he was worried, and he took a very uncharacteristic kind of pause, and he comes around to the answer of, well, on the legal side, 0, 0, 0, because I did nothing wrong.
Right.
Like there's this sense that these guys are targeting him, and they might have actually nabbed him on this one. So I remain a healthy skepticism that the legal system is going to be our savior here. I think the voters are going to have to be the ultimate savior. But I did think it was interesting that he betrayed some. Maybe a little bit of waning confidence about his position.
Yeah, he did seem he seemed a caged animal a lot to me too. I mean, just looking at him, the body language is like very defensive, which he normally is. But you could tell he was really, to me, much more off his balance than normal. Especially compared to that ridiculous town hall on CNN, right? I mean, he was swaggering.
He felt like the alpha predator,
right.
He had the people in the room. They're cheering him on. He had the fans. He knew he had Caitlyn. I think she did the best she could. This is not but she was put in an impossible position by Chris Licht. I actually agree. But he did feel in that way, he was defensive, at her questions, and defensive in the kind of casual way that he's always that he's always defensive. But he didn't feel like nervous at all. Right. He felt dominant. And I think with Brett, there were a couple of times where he felt on his heels.
Yeah, you could see it. And one of those times, so during the interview, he seemed not to recognize that the woman he pardoned, Alice Johnson, would be executed under his policy that he announced in one of his weird policy announcements, those weird hostage videos he does. And, it was interesting because Ron Filipkowski benched it. When that came out, he talked about those weird hostage video policy things he's been putting out. And it does seem like a lot of people are ignoring those, right? That he's putting those out on a daily, like just flooding them out. And they're kind of going off into the freaking ether, it seems like. But that was one of his big policies, right? We're going to execute drug offenders. And it didn't seem like he knew that, right? I mean, should we be paying attention to those crazy policies? Like, I think today he says he's going to get rid of the Impoundment Act or some crazy, first of all, are those Stephen Miller like I think they are? Where the hell is this coming from, do you think?
Some of it's Stephen Miller. Some of it with Trump is just bottom up. And like literally he gets stuff for the golf caddy, Dan Scavino, who sources it from the social media. Wow. I mean, like this is really where the Muslim ban stuff came from, right? It wasn't a grand plan. It was this bottom up. People were like, we should get rid of them. And like Trump like spits it out and then the crowd goes crazy. And he road tests this stuff. Yeah. And I think that he has road tested the punishments for drug dealers and sees a good response. And so he continues to do it. That Brett Baer clip, I mean, the whole bit about why me and Tom Nichols did the live YouTube at the Bulwark on this is like, I think there are a lot of people out there who feel like they have to pay attention to this stuff going into 2024, but they don't want to act. They can't hear his fucking voice anymore. Excuse my language. They can't hear look at his face anymore. Nope. And so it's like, we're paid, so we do this so you don't have to and report back. But if you do have to watch 45 seconds of the Brett Baer two-part interview, this drug dealer part is just hilarious because it just shows how little thought Donald Trump puts into any of these stupid policy things. Right. It's like he's like death penalty for drug dealers, and then literally the next question is like, well, but what about the First Step Act that let a lot of drug dealers for nonviolent drug dealers off? And he's like, oh, great policy. He's like, but wouldn't your new policy have killed them? And he kind of like gives a little wink. And he's like, ooh, guess you got me there, Brett. And it's like he's thought about it so little that this did not take Harvard debate team kind of skills to box him into the corner here. I mean, it's like Brett wasn't really trying to go for this great gotcha. No. Brett Baer's not exactly Walter not exactly Tim Russert over there.
No.
So it's just kind of hilarious. Here's why I think it's worth monitoring, though. Is and we'll get into kind of the politics of whether he can win or lose, I'm sure, but the first term, while I was far less sympathetic than other people to the people that went in because they said we need to contain him, we need to have good people around him. I was very unsympathetic to that argument, but there was something to that in the sense that Gary Cohn was taking stuff off his desk, and John Kelly like wasn't showing him bad ideas, and they were pocket vetoing things.
Yeah.
And so a second term like isn't going to have that. Right. Yeah. Like none of those people are going to go in. Like the only people that are going to go in are the Goombas and the yes men and stuff. And so I do think you have to pay attention, because I think that were he, God forbid, to get in there again, I like his crazy ideas, I think would be more likely for them to at least try to put them into place than in the first term, when he had a lot of actually kind of old school Republicans around him who, when he was like, let's put alligators in the Rio Grande, they're like, okay, boss. And then they didn't, they just didn't do it. And I think that the next batch of people will be like, yeah, where can we source the alligators from?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I think we saw a taste of that, right? I think you saw a taste of that at the election with the Goombas that came in as temporary, members of the cabinet, right? You saw, I think,
the Jeff Clarks.
Right, the Jeff Clarks, the nut jobs, and the Kash Patels, and let's make Kash Patel Attorney General, whatever. Like, whoa, shit. It's just, and so I do think we had a taste of it, and we do ignore it at our own peril, right? I mean, there is some really crazy people, and I knew people like that because I was doing veteran stuff then, and a number of my people I consider dear friends, and frankly, some of them still are, did go in the administration and ended up being very senior executives in the VA for that very reason. Like, look, I'm a Republican. I want to serve veterans. He's a Republican, and I told a dear friend of mine, a really good friend of mine. I went in and I said, look, man. I said when he got elected, I said, look, do you ever meet anybody that says, I was a proud member of the Nixon administration, except for Roger Stone? And I said, I do believe in my heart that at some point being a member of the Trump administration will be the same thing. And I told him that. I said, there's not going to be something you're going to be touting that you spent 4 years working for Donald Trump. And yeah, so I do think those people are in the wings, and it is going to be insane. I thought it was interesting too that after the interview, Britt Hume was on, and he kind of teed off. I mean, it does feel like there's they're being a little bit more honest after the interview on Fox. I mean, has the worm turned at Fox, or is it just a moment, do you think?
I don't know if the worm's turned. I think it's a mixed bag. Well, there are two things to remember here, just to put in context for people who suffered through. I don't like to besmirch actual PTSD, especially being here with veterans. So to take it as
it's
a
okay.
word phrase.
as one who has it, I would give me PTSD.
Yeah, exactly. I have a mild campaign version of PTSD.
Oh yeah, no, I read your book.
So you get that. Fox in 2016 was mixed, right? Like people, you kind of forget that, right? That they came around when he won.
Yeah.
Right. And you can look at Hannity, right? Like some came around earlier, some came around later, but it was a mixed bag. There were people on Fox that really didn't like Trump even through the general election, conservatives. And then he won, and they kind of fully embraced, their position as state TV, and they got rid of, a handful of people that were the conscientious objectors to continue our military terms.
Yeah.
And so, I think that we're kind of going back to that phase, right? Where there's going to be certain personalities at Fox that feel like they have the ability now to speak at least a version of the truth, maybe not the whole truth about Trump, because they see that there's a possibility for another option. Right. Like the problem in 2020, why Fox was so, this is not a defense of them at all. This is an explanation of the rationale. In 2020, the only off ramp was a Democrat. Joe Biden. Right. Now, people like you and me who look at this and are like, Joe Biden seems fine. I disagree with a couple of his policies, but he seems perfectly fine compared to this lunatic that wants to create a fascist dictatorship. Right. Okay. Like Joe Biden was a fine alternative, but I was out. Right. If you're still in that politics, you're like, I can't undermine this guy, or else I've become a Democrat. I've put on a different jersey, whatever. Like that's what's happening in their heads now. Their off ramp is Ron DeSantis or Tim Scott or Vivek Ramaswamy or whatever, and none of those people are particularly appealing to me for various reasons. But I think because they feel like they have that other off ramp, they can kind of test drive, put their toe in the water of being honest about certain parts of the Trump thing. Right. And I just think that the post game of the Brett was so revealing about how Fox is like tiptoeing around that and navigating that. Is that Britt goes on and talks about how terrible his answers were about, the legal side of it and how he got himself in more legal trouble by admitting he had the boxes and saying he thought he had golf shoes in there or whatever, and how stupid it was and how inadvisable it was. And then the next two answers, Martha McCallum is like, well, I agree with that, but I have to say he was really strong on his national security platform. And I was like, he was? He said that Putin should invade. He didn't say that Putin was wrong about invading Ukraine. And he talked about how great MBS and how strong Kim Jong-un were. I didn't think, it didn't seem that strong. But anyway, so she says that. She's like, does the criticism sandwich thing, like, well, I didn't like this, but he was really strong in his Kim Jong-un statements. and then Dana Perino is next. And she goes, well, I think it'd be smart for him to stop talking about the legal issues. It's like just coaching. So I just think
she's
that
a former
is
spokesman,
how Fox is trying to navigate it. It's like we can throw criticism out there, but maybe we'll try to nudge him in the right direction. And maybe, but then we also have to pat him on the back because we don't want our viewers to turn the channel. We don't want them going over to Newsmax.
Right. It's a great place to pause because we have some incredible sponsors this week. I want to give them a chance to tell their story. Let's stop cutting down trees to make toilet paper. I mean, it's true. Humans are cutting down tens of thousands of every day just to supply the American need for toilet paper. And the worst part is that when you use trees for toilet paper, it's just one use and done. It can't be reused or recycled. It just goes straight into our water system. That's why I made the switch to real paper. Real is 100% bamboo. So we're using a plant that grows fast, can be harvested and regenerated like grass on a lawn, and doesn't impact entire ecosystems of forest. Real is the best kind of eco-friendly product because it doesn't feel like you're sacrificing something to help the earth. In fact, honestly, it feels like an upgrade. I'm really busy these days, so it's great to have it shipped free to my door in a plastic-free packaging. And I can schedule it on a subscription so that it comes exactly when I need it. And y'all, I'm super forgetful, as anyone who knows me knows, so I don't have to worry about picking it up at the store where I always forget. I'm a bit of an environmentalist myself too, so I love that Real is now a partner with One Tree Planted. And with every box of Real that you buy, they're funding reforestation efforts across the country. So unlike other toilet paper products that cuts down trees, Real is actually helping to plant trees. Now, Real paper is available in easy, hassle-free subscriptions or for one-time purchases on their website. All orders are conveniently delivered to your door with free shipping and 100% recyclable, plastic-free packaging. Now, if you head to realpaper.com/Fred, sign up for a subscription using my code FRED at the checkout, you'll automatically get 30% off your first order and free shipping. So that's realpaper.com/Fred, or just enter the promo code FRED. Get 30% off your first order plus free shipping. Let's make a change for good this year. Switch to Real Paper. Real is paper for the planet. We've all heard the famous line, try it for free for 30 days. And yeah, that's just enough time to try it, then completely forget about it. In fact, over 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about, and you could be wasting money and not even realizing it. Rocket Money helps you find those forgotten subscriptions so you can stop paying for ones you don't use. Do you know how much your subscriptions really cost? I mean, most Americans think they spend around, $80 a month on subscriptions, but the actual total is closer to $200. If you don't know exactly how much you're spending every month, you need Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about, and chances are you're one of them. Like that Stars app you got for just that one show, or the free gaming trial you never even used. Rocket Money will quickly and easily find your subscriptions for you, and for any you don't want to pay for anymore, just hit cancel, and Rocket Money will cancel it for you. It's that easy. Now, Rocket Money also helps you manage all your finances in one place and automatically categorize your expenses so you can easily track your budget in real time and get alerted if anything looks off. Over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, saving the average person up to $720 a year. So stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/Fred. I said again, that's rocketmoney.com/Fred. Try it. Again, use my code, rocketmoney.com/Fred. So circling back to that, and one of the things that I sat there watching that interview, his big thing is that, like you said earlier, the alpha wolf stalking thing, right? Like he does. I didn't see an alpha wolf in that in that interview. It almost feels like he's looking weak. I mean, let's be honest. There's 30. I forget the numbers because my brain is mush. 35 in New York, 37 with the feds. Georgia's coming. We know Georgia's coming. They had security people in Miami, so Georgia's coming. It just how long does he maintain the facade? We have Ruth Ben-Ghiat's book in here somewhere about strongmen. She was a guest in the show. There's real danger, though, in him showing weakness here, right? And you've got, DeSantis out there circling as the next tough guy, right? I mean, do you think there's real danger to his image of being this manly man that even his own stalwarts will start peeling off at some point? Or am I just a dreamer?
I think I might be dreaming. I mean, I think that there's some risk of that. I worry more about the fact that he senses that threat and lashes out even more. I mean, this is not the kind of guy that's going to go down quietly, right, to say the least. Right. He's not going to decide one day that he's going to play this by the book and try to plead out and try hand the throne over to Ron DeSantis in hopes he gets pardoned. That's not how this game ends. You don't make a deal with the devil and then just just get to walk away like that, right? Trump, I think if he senses that people think that he's weakening, I think will likely lash out more and more, and become more threatening and more strongmanish. I don't know what the word is there, right? Authority, and then you worry about what impact that has on, particularly the most extreme radicalized members of his base. So to me, I think that it's possible that he starts to lose altitude and feel a little diminished. But if he senses that, I think that what could come next for him might be pretty scary. Just one other observation on this kind of alpha beta thing and just assessing Trump. Mm-hmm. The part of the interview where he seemed the two parts of the interview where he seemed the most alpha, if you will. Yeah. And he always has been this way, is in the intra-Republican universe fights, right? I mean, the Ron DeSantis stuff, he's got down. He might not know one thing about the details of his First Step Act policy. Like he might not have any idea about what the details were of that policy that he signed into law that had effect on millions of people. Yeah. He might not know, where he went to lunch yesterday, but he knows the minutia of all of Ron DeSantis's weaknesses. Yeah. And as soon as Ron DeSanctimonious, as he says, comes up, he was going at him and talking about his polling numbers from back in 2016, in the primary against Adam Putnam, and he's pulling out all these facts about Ron DeSantis's COVID policy. I mean, he is prepped for that. And in the intro fight with Ron DeSantis, he seemed, like he was ready to be that alpha. And I think he felt the same way with Brett as the interview gets to the end, where Brett's like, "Oh, please, Mr. Trump, will you do the Fox debate? We could really use you." And he's like, "Well, you haven't been too nice to me, Brett." Right? Like he knows how to use his stature and his power with the base to control the other members of the Republican elite. Yeah. And I think that is the biggest thing he has going for him politically. While he has all these other legal threats, hanging over him.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me what a window in his psyche is, right? Like you said, he doesn't know his own policies or his own, supposed things, but man, he knows his enemies, right? I mean, he's obsessed with his enemies, and DeSantis is an enemy because he supported him and he turned on him. It's the ultimate enemy. That not only did he support him, and then it's worse than John Kelly or these other guys who have vaguely criticized him. I mean, this is a guy who literally got endorsed by him, did an entire ad of that. Remember that ridiculous effing ad of build the wall with his kid? I mean, what a fucking freak job. And now he's turned on him and he's running against him. It's the ultimate betrayal, I think. So yeah, he's obsessed with his enemies and it's going to drive him crazy. I thought a poll floated across my radar like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. And of course, trying to find it now would be impossible. But it did. I saw in this poll where it said like 30% of the Republican respondents said they would vote for Trump even if he wasn't on the ballot. They would only vote for Trump even if he wasn't on the ballot, right? So what is, as you say, as this campaign unfolds with these Republicans, there's like 900 of them running, I guess now. I can't even keep track of them anymore. You got to alphabetize them. Does anyone have a freaking chance? I mean, honestly, in the end, if the guy has 30% of their party is just saying, no, he's the only one we'll go with, these are some very, very weak. Even if they somehow beat him, like he dies. And I think Jeff Timmer said it best. Because the only thing between Trump and the Republican nomination is his aorta and a jail cell, right? I mean,
and maybe not even a jail cell.
Not even a jail cell, right? Well, we saw that too.
I think that I'm still on the more bullish side about DeSantis's prospects than most of the Never Trump pundits.
Interesting.
Mostly just because, like, he has maintained, in the face of Trump's attacks, he has maintained very high favorability.
Yeah.
You know, like, we watched Jeb and Cruz, like, their numbers tanked. I was on anybody but Trump person. I don't like Ted Cruz, but I was an anybody but Trump person. I was with Jeb. And then after Jeb dropped out, I went to help Cruz, like, not on his campaign, but just we had a pack. And like, before I had the pack, I met with the advisors, and they showed me poll numbers that were insane. Like Cruz with the base was like 80% favorable, and then he criticized Trump, and the next day he went to 28 favorable. It was just like, like Trump had total control. That isn't the true case now. Like, DeSantis has his own relationship with the base, and he has a good, again, not, it doesn't appeal to me, but to that MAGA voter, he's a good elevator pitch, right? Which is, I won in Florida. I stood up to Fauci. I stood up to the left, and why not just go with somebody like me who hates your same enemies but also knows how to win? Yeah, it's not a bad elevator pitch. So I think Trump is still an overwhelming favorite, but I think DeSantis is alive. And I think the interesting reveal on why it's just DeSantis was a poll I saw this week. And it was the head-to-head. So it was Trump, DeSantis, and then Trump, Tim Scott. And the Trump DeSantis was like 60-something to 33. So Trump's still a huge lead, no doubt. The Trump Scott one was 70-something to 23. Right. So there's a gap of people who are like, will only leave him for DeSantis. They're not going to leave him for any of the other guys who seem like normal politicians, old school Republicans at all. Yeah. Right. And so DeSantis has that base. And I think if you're looking at Trump having a 33% cult base that's never leaving him, you know, DeSantis having about a 25% base of the college educated Republican types who are like, I just want to be rid of this guy. The big middle is these MAGA voters who like Trump, that are like, I'm not quite sure. Like, can he win? I'm starting to wonder if all this stuff's a little too much. And will the weight of all of these indictments eventually move those people? Yeah. I wouldn't get your hopes up if you're like me, a desperate for Trump to lose person. But I don't think the chance is zero. I think that's the key group is can that group that they like Trump still, but they're open to giving him the gold watch, can they be moved off him? Nobody's been able to do it yet, so I wouldn't bet on it. But I think that they're at least in play. Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. Our judicial system's slow, right? So, you know, I mean, Georgia will come out with several charges. They'll be devastating in a lot of ways. The stuff she's looking at RICO, I mean, for God's sake, I mean, there's some pretty ugly stuff in there that we know is going to come. His numbers have barely moved with two sets of indictments. So it is hard to. They've gone up. They've gone up, and yeah, that's it. And so the base loves it with the Republicans. He'll get the nomination. I mean, like I said, I agree with you. Unless he literally keels over, I don't see him not getting the nomination. I really, at least. Now the general, I don't know. Now back to DeSantis though. One of the things I've really been kind of harping on with DeSantis is that, you know, one of the most striking things is a number of polls, again, back to the polls, but one of the really, that YouGov poll from 3 weeks ago, where they read they actually did the survey and they read like, here's 6 policies, you know, guns, more guns, right? You know, abortion in 6 weeks. And they read them to the people. And at the end they said, by the way, these are all Ron DeSantis' policies that he passed in Florida. What is your opinion of Ron DeSantis now? And overall, it went down 6 points. Okay? Like when people found out of it, because his big theme is Make America Florida, right? And in poll after poll, we're finding that the Make America Florida theme falls flat on its ass. And even with some Republicans, like a 4% drop, that was a 4-point drop with Republican voters. So when people find out what he's done to Florida, you know, it's great in theory, but it's interesting. So if his big campaign theme, Jeff Rowe TM, is, you know, Make America Florida, I mean, at some point, yeah, if he does break out, I mean, when people really start hearing the truth, though, what are his chances? I mean, there's some pretty heinous policies coming out of Florida right now. Yeah, I think that is on the weak side. This is DeSantis' problem. Right. The elevator pitch I told you about, the elevator pitch is good with Republican voters. The details, the devil's in the details. Yeah. And he starts to get in trouble. And part of it is performance and part of it is policies. Yeah. And I just look at him And I think to argue against the point I just made, not really to argue against, because like I said, I still think Trump is an overwhelming favorite. But the reason why he's an overwhelming favorite and why DeSantis, I think, has a small chance but things aren't looking good is that he is running this Ted Cruz playbook that your friend Jeff Rowe already did, and it failed. And it failed. Like Ted Cruz didn't win. It wasn't particularly close. And the problem is, if you try to get to Trump's right on everything, you misunderstand the nature of the MAGA base, right? The MAGA base is not like, I want the most conservative thing on every policy issue. Like a lot of them are non-political. A lot of the people that Trump brought in are not non-political, non-ideological. A lot of people that Trump brought in are working class guys that are secular. They don't go to church on Sundays. Like they don't, they might want to have they get into a situation, they might want their girlfriend or wife or gal they met to be able to have an abortion. Yep. Right. Like they don't want tax cuts for the wealthy. Right. Like, there are these specific policies. If you just go down the far right, there's a certain audience for them, but it's not enough to take the majority in the Republican primary. And the thing that Trump got right, I think just by like lizard instinct, not by any, because he didn't have a Jeff Rowe.
He's a master marketer.
It's just like some of these people just want somebody that's like, I'm on your side. And I'm not looking at all this. I don't care about all this weird stuff. Like this guy wants to balance the budget and wants priests in charge, wants priests to deciding stuff. And Trump got some voters who are kind of cross-pressured moderate type voters to vote for him because they saw him as like the New York businessman who's going to fight for them. Right. And then he cut the deal with the evangelicals who are like, well, okay, well, we'll go with him too, because he says that he's going to, do our bidding. Right. And so Trump was able to pull from both groups, the very conservative and kind of the not as quite as conservative cultural right. Working class guys. And DeSantis is putting himself in the position where he only can get from that one lane, the super far right people. And they make up a big portion of the Republican primary party, but they don't bring up a majority. They don't make up a majority. And he doesn't, it felt like, Carrie Lake learned a little better, even though she didn't do it in the general election, kind of that how to bridge all the groups in primary politics. And I think that a lot of these Trump voters who he brought in look at DeSantis and they're like, you're kind of weird. A 5-week abortion ban with no exceptions is really weird. And, some of these other policies are like a little too, nerdy. You know what I mean? You're like with the nerdy kid in class that wanted this far right stuff. And like, I'm not that. I want to drink beers and make fun of the libs, and Trump's my guy.
Yeah. And still go to fucking Disney. I mean, that's the thing. I'm always joking.
Why are you so obsessed?
Why are you so obsessed about Disney? And by the way, you know how many adults love Disney? Have you ever met Disney adults? Holy shit.
Have you been to Disney World? I have a 5-year-old. Have you been to Disney World lately? I'm telling you, it's not all libs there.
Oh, no, that's my point. It is.
I don't want to judge a book by its cover, but there were a lot of people I was in line with who I'm pretty sure were Donald Trump voters.
They're not libs. Yeah, and that's the thing about him is he picks these fights because he thinks this, but it goes to his personality being so weak. I mean, he's just terrible. I mean, he's just not a good person. It sounds funny to say that, and it shouldn't matter, but he doesn't connect with people at all. He has no personality, and we hear story. Now we're seeing. I think a lot of people heard these rumors from Republican insiders. We saw from like Rick Wilson's in Florida. And they're saying, oh yeah, you understand, he's got Casey. And that's it. I had Michael Steele on the show a couple of months ago. Michael says, you understand, he has a tight circle, and to run a presidential campaign, you need a giant circle, and he still has a tight circle. And we're seeing these stumble after stumble, and that's exactly it. Because
just really quick anecdotes on the circle. Yeah. I called one of his House colleagues who became a never Trumper. I guess I probably shouldn't out them, so I won't say who it is. But I was like, hey, I'm trying to learn more about DeSantis. Like, who were his pals in Congress? Like, who do you hang out with? And this person was like, nobody. He didn't have any. Like, he voted and he left, and he didn't have any. And so that's really telling you, a person not having friends is a big red flag for me. Right. And the other thing is, from my Jeb experience, this happened. Like, Jeb hadn't been in the game for a while. A lot of his consultants were retired and older. And so he comes back in and so he hired a lot of new people, and me and him ended up getting along really well, but he had a lot of new people around. And so there's no trust. Like, it's hard. it's hard to run a good campaign when you're like, you bring in this guy, Jeff Rowe from Missouri that you met 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And now he's got to, and he has to be on the super PAC where you can't legally coordinate, and you kind of can, but you can't really communicate. And it creates an environment that makes it easy like for there to be distrust building, resentment, anger, and that personality, those personality quirks, maybe would be the nice way to say it, that DeSantis has, that has led him to this place, is a problem.
Yeah, and I kind of agree. That kind of takes me to your book. One of the things that struck me in your book is, and we were going to discuss it when we met in St. Louis, but was you were discussing the attitudes among these political professionals as all of it being a game at the time, right, back in 2016. And it felt like the key line in your book really is that it goes there. That's the key line, that it was a game, and it goes the reasoning behind how many of them gave themselves to Trump. But it kind of feels to me sometimes now, Tim. It's been a year, right? I think since the book came out. It feels like everything has become a game to everyone at this point. I mean, the political operatives, the Jeff Rose, to the actual politicians like the Marjorie Taylor Greens and everybody else, and even to the media at this point. I mean, where does that leave us in this moment? I mean, as the indictments roll out and the game seems to be getting harder to carry, right? It's hard to carry the game when the guy when the guy in the game, the main player, is indicted for federal counts and stuff. I mean, people are showing up with guns, right? You said it earlier, that they're getting people fired up. I mean, how long does it? I mean, now we got the game I think the game's gotten bigger. We've got the Joe Rogans and the Elon Musks are in the game now too. I mean, do you think this game's getting dangerous? I
do, and I worry about this. And I wrote about it in the book. I think that the threat is much greater on the right. Excuse me. So I don't want to create a false equivalency, but I think that even left listeners should really kind of meditate on this.
Okay.
Which is like, there was a time when I was coming up in politics, the people that saw politics as a game were really like a small handful of us super nerds, right? Who like worked on campaigns, and we followed like statistics, like baseball stats. And there were a handful of other people who were like big observers of politics who did too, who read Politico blog and stuff and commented. But like mostly like most of normal society, like their engagement with politics and government was about how it affected them, right? Like this, my school district is doing something I don't like. I'm not getting the services I need. This certain, tax is costing me, whatever their, actual policy interaction with government was why they would care. That's healthy. Okay. That's the way you should engage with government, because that's what government does. I'm deeply concerned now that this game that those of us, who were just living in the DC Beltway were playing has like metastasized out to the whole world. And everybody is in this place now where they're like, my team has to win. Like, it's so like my team has to win. And I actually don't care if it's true, or I just want the other guys to lose and suffer. And it's like when I'm at the Nuggets and I'm watching our game against the Suns, and I'm like, you suck, KD. And I'm like, I don't know anything about KD, right? It's all performative. It's all for fun. Like, this is why they make a lot of money, right? Because we can go out there and in a healthy way, get, blow off a little bit of steam and have a good time and cheer for your side and have a pretend enemy for a couple hours.
Yeah.
That's not healthy when your pretend enemy is like your neighbor.
Right.
And the other person on the street, just because they have up a sign of the candidate you don't like.
Right.
And I think that on the right in particular, this has spiraled to a place that's dangerous and violent. And you're starting to see it. I'm worried about, there were threats about the Nashville Pride Parade coming up this weekend. And I worry that you get people who get so wrapped up in it that it's hard for them to distinguish between what's real and what's fake, and they see people in their own society's enemy combatants. And when the stakes get higher and higher, as Trump, this is what I was getting to earlier, as Trump might go to jail, and they start to really believe in their head that the deep state or the Joe Biden did this happen, and instead of the reality of Donald Trump did this to himself, then it becomes kind of logical that they lead to go to violence, right? Like, if you genuinely believe we're in this war between one team and another team in society, and the other team is jailing the head of my team unfairly, well, wouldn't it be kind of logical to if your brain is in that broken place to say, well, what's the next step? I should storm the Capitol. Right. And so I do think that we're getting, the place that we're getting to here, is, continues to be very, very tense and very unstable. And I'm concerned about it. And I think that we need to find ways to take down the temperature, but that's hard to do as long as there's somebody out there who's trying to, create a fascist state like Donald Trump.
Whose entire modus operandi is to pour more gas on the fire.
Exactly.
That's another great place to pause for a second and hear from some more of our great sponsors. And I got a great question to follow on that. Do you know your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? If you wake up too hot or too cold, like I do often, I really recommend you try out Miracle Made sheets. Inspired by NASA, Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding so you can sleep the perfect temperature all night long. Now, that silver-infused fabric means that Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long so you get a better night's sleep. And I can tell you honestly, I have. Now, the silver fusion technology also adds an extra benefit. It means the sheets prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them cleaner and fresher 3 times longer than normal sheets. There's no more gross odors from your sheets. You don't have to worry about any problems with bacteria. They just last longer. Now, I've been sleeping with these sheets, and they're seriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and they feel as nice, if not nicer, than the bed sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria clogs your pores, causes breakouts and acne, a whole bunch of problems. Sleep better, sleep clean with Miracle. Now, go try miracle.com/Fred. That's go to trymiracle.com/Fred to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use that promo code Fred at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. So Miracle Made is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Now, upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/Fred and use the code Fred to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40%. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Fred. Treat yourself. I love the products. I've been using them myself and sleeping like a baby. I don't know if you're like me, but the pain of trying to find what to wear is killing me. Most clothes are uncomfortable, never the actual size that I really am, and not to mention how much time is wasted for me trying to find a good outfit. So when you do have a good fit, you can only wear it for a few hours before you have to go to a meeting or a dinner date and you have to change. Everyone wants to dress their best and look good at all times because, frankly, it's a confidence booster. Men are no different. Men's closets are due for a radical reinvention, and Rhone stepped up to the challenge. Rhone's Commuter Collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man, and here's why. Rhone helps you get ready for any occasion, from work to hang out at a local brewery. Their collection offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Rhone Commuter Collection. Now, Rhone's comfortable 4-way stretch fabric provides breathability, flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way from your commute to work or, walking to the box seats at the Cardinals game. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll smelling fresh, clean all day long. On top of that, Rhone is 100% machine washable. Because I don't know about y'all, I live alone. I got to wash my own darn clothes. So you can ditch going to the dry cleaner. I love the Rhone Commuter Collection for my lifestyle and fashion choice. Now, look, I'm on the move a lot, whether it's jumping from meeting to meeting or heading to meet friends or, catching a flight to go somewhere like I am this week. The Rhone Commuter Collection has never let me down. Even after I wear it all day, I feel super fresh because of that Gold Fusion anti-odor technology. So the Commuter Collection can get you through any working day straight into whatever comes next. Now, here's what I want you to do. Head to rhone.com/Fred. Use promo code FRED to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to rhone.com/Fred. And use that code FRED. It's time to find your, when you check out. It's time to find your corner offers comfort, and Rhone offers the best. On that note, as we left, was I was doing doors in Northwest Georgia in the campaign against Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I knocked on a door. I approached a door one day, and there was I'll just say an older white lady talking to an older black man on the steps of his house talking. And as I walked up with my candidate's stuff, she says, "Well, who are you here for?" I said, "Marcus Flowers, running against Marjorie Taylor." She goes, "Oh, don't even talk to me." I said, "Why is that?" She goes, "Oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's my girl." And I said, "I'm curious, why?" She goes, "Because she makes people like you crazy. That's why." And she walked away. And of course, the nice black man on the staff was like, "Hey, why don't you give me some of those flyers?" But when you, how do you get past? I mean, that's the game, right? I mean, that's where we are, right? That's the nation as a whole, right? There isn't a policy. I mean, I think that's why it's interesting when we talk earlier about DeSantis's policies and we talk about Tim Scott's policy. I don't know what they are, frankly. We're not talking policy on the right at all, but on the left, right, we are. And I'm circling. There's a big circle back to a question I had, which was the next phase of this thing is the Hunter Biden deal yesterday. I actually did a video for Midas Touch about how the fact that you saw McCarthy come out and the Republican messaging machine immediately came out with sweetheart deal. And I actually did a whole bit where I had something like 20 tweets, strung together of sweetheart deal. But what worked was then the next set, what I did to make it interesting, would not just, bash the Republicans for using this term sweetheart deal all the time, was how the media picked it up. Right. Immediately, New York Times had a story out saying, well, is this a sweetheart deal? Is Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, everybody had to use the term sweetheart deal. And that's how good the messaging is on the right and their ability to get a message out. They send them, I swear to God, they probably sent a memo out. I imagine they did, right? I mean, you worked at that level. I mean, how does that work? How do they get a message so fast? And why are we not doing it on the Democratic side still? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah,
you lived in that world. I mean,
a lot there.
You're in Orange. I know there's a lot there.
Yeah, just really quick, one sentence on the woman on the steps, because that's so apt to our political problem that we're in. Right? It's like, that's not healthy, and that's not where we were in the 1990s. That is a real difference about how our politics has gotten to a place that's not healthy. That like she couldn't say, "Oh, well, I'm from Marjorie Taylor Greene because." She did this for our district. She supports fetuses, and I'm just pro-life to the end. And it's like, okay, well, you could agree or disagree.
She got the road fixed, right? Whatever.
Yeah, she fixed the roads, right? Yeah. No, it's like she makes you crazy. Like that's what I like. That's not what politics is supposed to be about. Politics is supposed to be about government bringing services and trying to create a system that serves the people in the best way possible to protect.
Literally,
rights.
a woman whose district offices were PO boxes. She didn't list her district office. It was secret, and yet 68% of the vote.
Anyway, on the Hunter Biden thing and the messaging machine, part of the thing about the Republicans, sometimes it's easy to be like, oh, the Republicans are so good at this. It's like, no, the Republicans are good at one thing, right? Which is uniting on a message to attack Democrats with. Like, because of the policy stuff we've been discussing, they're very bad at that.
Yeah.
Right. It's why the Republicans haven't, and this Republican House has done literally nothing.
Yeah.
Like they can't even agree internally on a vote. My buddy at the White House, Andrew Bates, sent a tweet the other day that was like, maybe you guys should hire a mediator to help to help your internal
party.
issues.
Yeah.
And like he sent a link to a Yelp page, with local mediators in DC. So there's a lot of cluster fuckery in the Republican Party too, but this part they have down, right? Like they know they're oppositional to the Democrats. When there's a big, but when there's a big news thing, they jump on it.
Right.
And I don't think it's for lack of trying on the Democratic side. I don't think it's that Democrats don't have people at the DNC that send out memos and stuff. I get memos from the DSCC. I still get memos from the Republicans too. I'm still on some of the list. Yeah. Right. It's just that a lot of Democrats are just cautious about being that way. Like they want to be more cerebral and they want to be more nuanced and whatever. And a lot of Republicans are just like, fuck it. Yeah, sweetheart deal. Fuck. And it's just like, what is the sweetheart deal? Yeah. Like, what is it? Like the guy, what he actually did was he didn't pay taxes for 2 years. He was 2 years delayed on taxes. Yeah. And then he might have paid taxes, but 2 years he was delayed 100,000 of his taxes. Yeah. And then he took some deductions that he wasn't supposed to take. He wrote some things off for his business that weren't business expenses. And then he had a gun that was legally purchased. It was only illegally purchased because he was a drug addict and he had to check a box saying I'm not a drug addict. Right. That's it. Those are his crimes. I'm not saying they aren't serious. I'm not saying he shouldn't have been held accountable for them, but it's not like he committed murder. What sweetheart deal are you talking about? It was his first offense. Yep. He gets probation. He's got to pay the back taxes. It's a better deal than Roger fucking Stone got, excuse my second F word, for $2 million in unpaid taxes. Yep. He didn't even have to plead to probation. He just had to pay the back taxes. So like there is no substance to the argument of sweetheart deal. It's just that everyone in the Republican Party, because of this game, circling back to the game, because they see themselves as on one team and the other guys on the other team They don't need to think about the nuance.
There you go.
Even the supposedly good Republicans, the Tim Scotts and whoever, just are like, okay, fire it off, sweetheart deal. Like, none of them on the merits had any specific criticisms because there wasn't anything there. No. It was a Trump-appointed prosecutor.
Right. Which Biden left in place without messing with it, like, because he's a norms and traditions kind of guy. And that's exactly what I pointed out. Like, good luck finding anybody criticizing the Roger Stone deal, who was already a convicted felon and got a pardon. It's like, that is the joke of it. And what a great perspective. And I appreciate you. I don't mind you telling me I'm wrong. I love being wrong. It's great. It is. We don't like it because we do mock that. We mock them for all using the same words. So on the Dems, they don't want to do that. They want to use different words. But the problem is, and what I pointed out yesterday was, you can say sweetheart deal in 5 seconds. Everybody hears that. It takes 1.5 to 2 minutes of legal analysis to prove it isn't. We did, right? And that's where they're so good, and that's where we fail. Yeah. And my frustration, frankly, was that none of us on our side, if you will, my side, if you will, did that with the Trump indictment, right? Trump espionage case. It should always be referred to as the Trump espionage case. Well, the documents. No, it's the Trump espionage case. Always, and they won't do that. It's that simple. They just use the simple term Trump espionage case, and good luck, because everyone wants to explain. Well, there are documents, but there was shirts. There was keep it simple. Keep it simple. I experienced it in Iraq. I mean, when I was trying to explain what the Iraqi army was doing. I mean, we had this whole system when I was in charge of I was helping the Ministry of Defense there with their training under General Petraeus, and they had a whole system of rating the Iraqi units. It was so convoluted, Tim. It was like 9 pages to explain a green or a red, right? Yeah. And it was causing us harm. It was causing us some harm. And at the same time, we had a map of Iraq that when an Iraqi unit took over a sector, it turned green on the map. That was it, turned green. I had a reporter in my office one day. He says, Fred, I don't get it. This is like 2006. When do we get out of here? Like, when's the Americans get out of here? So, well, you see the map? When the whole damn thing is green, we out. That's it. When it's green, we're gone. Right now it's about half, quarter green. And I actually went to Guy General Dempsey, was my boss at that time. I said, hey, can we reframe this? And that's when it became battle space. And to the credit, and I don't take all the credit for that, but that's when we started talking about, well, it's the battle space. And so you're going to have to keep it simple and repeat it over and over. And we really do fail on our side. Again, it's that cerebral nature of the Democratic side. Everything's about policy, like the nature of the policy. It's just keep it simple. And I do see stars. I think Dan Goldman's good at it. That's where AOC shines. AOC shines because she keeps it simple. I think she's able to punch back that way in a very simple and way. And I think the younger generation, Maxwell Frost, you're seeing a younger generation, I think, of Democrats who understand this messaging construct. Do you see that from your side as well?
Yeah, I do. And I think that there's some people who are good at it. And Pete was good at it, for example. I think that part of the problem is that this is not something that Biden is very good at either. Right. And I think that like having a figurehead that is going to do it, like that where it's going to be top down, you get more people on board. And like Biden just doesn't want to play that. No. And it's part of the reason that it's a reason for me to like him, right? Honestly, but I do think it's a weakness. It's a political weakness, and he hasn't, for whatever reason, Kamala hasn't filled that void, and they haven't empowered anybody to do it. It's kind of like why some of us were like, you should have made Pete chief of staff and had him on TV all the time, right? And then maybe it could have been Pete, right? It's sort of like the voice of Biden, but I understand why you might want to be secretary or something rather than chief of staff, but cool. Or maybe they didn't know each other well enough to have that kind of relationship. So but having somebody that could be that person, that they're speaking for the president might help. And so I think that is, if you look at the Democratic arc, Obama also was just so cerebral and and he was good at he was obviously so great at speechifying, but he wasn't great at talking points, because he didn't want to. He bristled at that. If you ask the pod bros, it's like, why? And he's like, it gave him the heebie-jeebies stuff to do that. And eventually, he finally kind of accepted it like later into the presidency where he would, repeat certain things on the stump. But I just think that the Democrats have been missing that, person who's willing to not to call you shameless, Fred, but to shamelessly repeat a very simple talking point over and over again, which is kind of what you need to do.
It is. I mean, I admit that freely. I mean, it's just understanding your audience, and we sit a lot, and as a PR guy before, as you know, and an Army PR guy is there's also this assumption, well, I send a tweet out, so everybody got it. Like, no, not everybody got your one
Right.
tweet. Believe it or not, that's what's so funny about Tucker Carlson going to Twitter to me. Is like, look, my girlfriend's 81-year-old parents are not on Twitter. They're not. Her dad watched Tucker on Fox. He is not getting a Twitter account so he can watch, his random, And so yeah, exactly. I giggle at the idea that a tweet or that DeSantis's launch on Twitter, that was tremendously stupid. Wasn't that? Totally off topic. Yeah, I'm really doing good at sticking on topic today, Tim.
Yeah, no,
I mean, what the hell is that?
It's like two former PR guys are just like, I'm offended as a professional. Like this is, I'm putting the campaigns on the side. I'm offended as a PR professional you would do this. Like
this
it was so bad.
Yeah, I mean, as a professional, what are you doing? Jesus, I just want to reach to the slap him. I was like, this is so amateur hour run. But I mean, again, you have to repeat, and I do see. And again, that's what we did love about Biden. We do love. I still love about Biden is that he is above it all. And I said that, it's funny. I'll criticize the Biden administration. I get all the hate from the left, and it's okay. But it's just you're right. I love your thinking though. Having someone who is kind of the voice, and it can't be the transportation secretary in this case. It does have to be somebody because Biden is. I don't want Biden in there swinging at Trump on the indictment. There's no place for that for the president. That's why we elected him, right? We elected him to get some what we did want norms and traditions. But I also say a lot. We're going to norm and tradition ourselves into autocracy if we're not careful.
Who used to be that, and in a couple of ways that I felt like crossed the line a little bit, but Harry Reid used to be that person for the Democrats.
Yes.
And if you look back at the Democrats and just you put aside the. I had some objections with the fact that Harry Reid a couple of times did this in ways that were not truthful. But if you just measure it based on skill at this particular thing, which is how do we find a discrete, understandable message and bang it into the ground and make sure all our people are on message. Reid was the best at that, I think, of all of the recent Democrats.
Yeah, I do see hope. I see hope on the Hakeem Jeffries side. I think he's done a pretty good
he
job.
seems good at this. He's got, unfortunately, the Speaker of the House, not the Speaker, but maybe soon to be Speaker of the House, but the House Democratic leader, he's got a lot of actual governing to do. He can't be they've got to deal with this very tiny Republican majority, that they're trying to fight off, prevent Republicans from doing the most damaging stuff they could do with that one branch of government. And so I do think he could possibly do that because he seems like he's got the skill set for sure.
Yeah, I've seen him speak a number of times. I've been just hugely impressed by him. I think he's doing a great job running that minority very effectively. The handoff was effective, and I've sung his praises in the show before. Well, I think we're about there. So, man, what a great conversation, Tim. I can't thank you enough for taking time. I know you're busy as hell. I've been trying to get you on the show for a while, and enjoy your victory in the Denver. It was a major win. And I always ask me, where can folks find you? I know you're the Bulwark. I mentioned at the top. Tell us where they can find you.
Sure, definitely come to the Bulwark. We're crushing it. I think it's going to be awesome going to 2024. Both the site and the YouTube page. I've got a Snapchat show for the Bulwark. So if you have any teens in your life that show. You're like, hey, trying to get them to learn about politics, I've got a show on Snapchat once a week that is like mostly 13 to 22-year-old boys that watch it. I don't know why that is. I guess that's just the Snapchat.
You're an icon.
So if you have anybody in that realm that you're trying to influence positively, send them to the Snapchat show, and I'll probably be popping on the circus on Showtime a couple times too.
Yeah, I love that. Mark McKinnon's a good friend. He was my one of my professors way back in grad school 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
He's the best.
And he came and visited us in Georgia during the campaign, and I had chances to sit down and hang out with him, and I just love his giant brain, and also his.
I've got one more thing for you. I'm not where to find you. I'm getting nervous about Twitter for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the thing I never thought I was going to do. Like I'm posting political stuff on Instagram, I'm like Tim Miller on the gram. And what are you doing? Are you going, we have a Bulwark Reddit now. Are you diversifying your social media?
I went to Substack. I opened a Substack finally. I've been pushing my Instagram hard, FP Wellman Official on Instagram. Yeah. And you're right. It's like, I tried the others. I mean, Spottable, Post, it's great, but it's not as fun, I've stuck with Twitter, but man, this last weekend with that Twitter escapade with Elon and Rogan and Peter Hotez, that scared me, and scared me in the sense of not so much. It's like a lot of the things. It's not like Trump. Like when Trump said he didn't like POWs or people were captured. It wasn't Trump saying that. It was the people who followed kind of backing him up. It's the same thing with the Hotez thing. It's not Elon and Rogan. It's the guy showing up at Hotez's house that kind of You know what I'm saying?
The sending him pictures of bullets and stuff. All that's scary.
That's where it gets scary. So I'm doing the same. I'm diversifying. We're going to show. Obviously, we're in the Midas Touch Network, but what can you do? I did do the Substack. Substack's funny. But we got a great community we're building on Substack around the show and around my journey. That's been a lot of fun too. So we'll see you there.
That's cool. I'll check that out.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, good seeing you, brother, and thanks for joining the show. And we will stay in touch.
You too, man. Go Redbirds.
Yeah, there you go. Go Cards. Man, what a great show. Tim Miller is the insight, and I love being proven wrong about my messaging construct idea. That's what makes this show as much fun as it is I love to have voices maybe you haven't heard on our side of things. So we had a great conversation, and Tim's a great guy. I cannot recommend this book enough. Why we did it, it's a unique insight into the machinations that got Trump elected and what's happened since. What's especially telling in his book, we didn't talk about in the interview, is he talks about these people, friends of his, like Elise Stefanik, and others who have gone all in, and the arc of what he witnessed personally from who they were to what they became in the MAGA world. So I just recommend the book highly if you haven't gotten it already. If it's still out there, it's a terrific book. As mentioned last week, I am now the national chairman for Forgotten Democrats. Very excited about that opportunity. We'll be launching with a town hall here on June 29th with my friend David Pepper, who was our guest last week. Going to have a great guest, Joseph Alfonso, who's running up in Michigan 4, ran last time, was one of our Forgotten Democrats, and is running again because he's a heroic. And even though he raised about $37,000, all he's able to raise, he gained within 10 points. And it just kind of goes to why we're launching Forgotten Democrats and the idea of supporting candidates everywhere who have not gotten support traditionally because they're in very difficult races. So we'll throw the screen up, but you can text Fred to 33777. That's 33777. Text Fred. You'll get an email. You'll join our email list. We're not going to hit you for money all the time. It's not how it's going to be. I hate that. I hate it so much. But I'd love you to join the Forgotten Democrats community. As always, we're sponsored by some incredible sponsors. You saw 4 sponsors this week. So humbled by the folks who have chimed in and decided to join our show and support our efforts. I couldn't do this without sponsors who are willing to back us up and spread the word. You can find our show on Twitter at On Democracy Pod, on YouTube, our own YouTube channel, of course, on Midas Touch every Friday night. So thrilled to be part of the Midas Touch Network. This week, Matt, we crossed 8 million views this week, man. 8 million views in 2 months. Thanks to being a part of the Midas Touch Network and all of you. You're incredible comments. You share our stories. You share the show. You go to Apple Podcasts. You go to Spotify. You download it. Please leave a positive review. Leave a comment. I try to read the comments. We're getting about 3,000 now, so I'll do my best. I love you guys. I may not see them all, but I'll try to answer. Maybe tag me. I'll find you. But that is because of the Midas Touch Network and the great folks. As always, we're here at our home, Half Coast Studios, presented by Vi Media. Vi Media is your digital marketing company. They've been with me since I started this show in studio over 6 months ago. They provide us support and services and everything we get. They're your digital marketing part of that's VIE.media. That's Vi.media for finding out more about them. As always, I am Fred Wellman. You can find me at FP Wellman on Twitter, still hanging in there. FP Wellman Official on Instagram. I put kitten pictures up. I'm fostering kittens. So if you want to see kitten content, it's complete clickbait. I did it on purpose. I admit it, it's just clickbait, but I'm almost at 5,000 Instagram followers, so I'll do what I got to do. So thanks for being part of the show. I've got another great guest next week that's going to make you think even more. A guy named Jeff Charlotte, who was really looking at this unfolding civil war that's going on that we were just talking about at the end of the show with Tim Miller. So don't miss next week's show right here in the Midas Touch Network. I'll see you soon.